Greetings everyone. In this video, we shall go through a code walkover for the DSL created for the final project by team number 3. The DSL in this project pertains to generating Sublime text configuration files. The idea here is that Sublime text, the editor, has files that contain the key bindings which are then used to run the editor. We shall have a quick look at them. So the key bindings are represented in Sublime Text as a dictionary object with keys and the command as their fields. In some cases, there are extra fields like the context field or the arguments field, but for our DSL, we are not going to provide for them. The DSL for this project consists of a structure which is a list of bindings which will contain one or more than one bindings, and in some cases zero bindings. Zero bindings will not raise an error, but the resultant text file will not run for Sublime. The binding itself will consist of a bunch of keys and the command that they are supposed to be a key binding for. The keys have to be one of the QWERTY keyboard keys, and the command has to be one of the commands that Sublime Text provides for. So now we'll start with the code. Our code consists primarily of a few data types. The primary one being the bindings. The bindings, as we have seen, have to be a list of bindings. What is a binding? It is a pairing between a bunch of keys and a command. We here check whether the key is actually a QWERTY keyboard key or not, and the command provided is one of the Sublime Text commands or not. How do we check them? We have made a list of the same. So these are the keys that can be used for creating the combinations for the project. These commands have been taken from this very file. This dictionary was downloaded and the commands were extracted to provide a basic list of what the Sublime commands are. These commands have been compiled here and placed for the benefit of the user. Once this check is complete, we can be certain that the given list of bindings pertains to the syntax that has been allowed for this grammar. After that, we go to the parse. What does the parse function do? The parse function takes a list where we shall go through a code walkover for the same. We'll take this as an example and then run through it. It takes a list and then we recognize that every list will contain of these tuples. Each tuple will consist of a bunch of keys and the command. That is exactly what we're trying to go for here. We will create for every tuple present in the list, we shall create a binding object which will take all the keys, generating key objects for each key available, and then the command object for the command that has been provided. This we will get a list. So we shall get a list which is full of bindings of keys and command, and then another binding of keys and command. Once that has been done, the next task that we have is to generate bindings from this said abstract syntax tree of key bindings. Now what this does is it takes a tree like this, and the task here is to generate a file that looks something like this. What shall we do? What we do here is that we use the display and string append functions, but that is something we can arrive at later. The primary goal of this code, this piece of code, the evaluation code, is to take a binding object and then print it out in a way that resembles a tree. So we know that the Sublime text starts with a dictionary object, and that's what we'll go for. This is something given by the main function itself, these two lines. Then for every binding, we attempt to generate a structure that looks something like this. How shall we do that? We do that by appending two strings. So an opening bracket, and then we list out the keys, and then we list out the command, and then the closing bracket. That is exactly how this is structured. We list out the keys and then the command. Listing out the command is a rather straightforward notion where the command object is taken and then the command word is appended to the string command. As far as keys are concerned, we take the keys and then for the list of keys, we convert them all symbols into strings and we add the plus sign between them and then we append the same. This gives us the notion of a key binding being given to the Sublime text. We shall see a sample of the same. So we see that our answer here is very similar to what Sublime text looks to provide. It has the keys and the key binding and the command that the key bindings are for. If this list was longer, we would have the full Sublime text like key binding being generated. So this concludes the basic code walkthrough of the project. It is to be noted here that we do not need to write code like this for when we are testing it. We have made a wrapper function which takes the text as given here and then generates the Sublime key bindings. So as we have already seen, this is the example that we've seen before. Now we shall look for some errors. So in the test 2, we notice that this symbol has been provided, which is not part of the QWERTY keyboard dictionary that we had provided. So when we run this, we shall be given an error, which is bad value for the key field. Where does this error stem from? It stems from this particular function here, which checks if the key is available or not. And since it's a false, we are given an error. Similarly, the test number 3, where a command is given which is not part of the Sublime command set. So when we run this, we will get an error, the bad value for the command field. But as long as our both fields are satisfied, we shall end up with this version of key binding. So shows us that the DSL that we have come up with here actually works and provides us with key bindings for the Sublime text. Now this particular text here can be directly taken and pasted into Sublime text and it will work. This here concludes the code walkthrough for our project for Team 3, the DSL for generating Sublime text configuration files. Thank you.